It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com from That's the Stuff release. That is autographed with Blondes and Black Cars. And just before that, we heard Rat from their EP version of Back for More. And that one goes out by email request to Gary, who's listening. I don't know where he's from. Gary's Skadra. So there you go, Gary.
There you go, Gary. Nice call.
Yep.
Unlike the autograph. Man, they stink.
They're just that bubblegum poppy rock, you know.
I did, and it's funny because I won't lie, I wore out Sign In Please when I was like 13 years old.
Well, you probably did. That's about the age range that they were probably shooting for, early teens.
I mean, there was a 1-2 punch in 1984, I think, when that came out, of that album, Sign In Please, and Jafria, the first Jafria with Call to the Heart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And those bands sound the same. They absolutely sound.
Well, it's that whole synthesizer rock, you know, that very happy poppy synthesizer rock.
Yeah, boy, it did not hold up well. It did not hold up well at all.
Well, it was an era though, because again, and we talked about this before about the synthesizer music that was so popular because the synthesizer had become perfected to where everybody was using it.
Oh yeah, even Rush, bands like that started pulling in synthesizers at that point.
Yeah, you know, I remember John Mellencamp, who's always been a straight ahead guitar, drums, bass rocker guy. Mm-hmm. I remember him doing an interview on MTV or something one time. It was, I don't know. It was like in the late 70s, or not late 70s. I mean, late 80s, where he was said, if I hear another band playing that synthesizer, I'm going to throw up.
He's so right though.
He was spot on.
It just was awful. But at the time, you know, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't own all these albums. I owned Sign In Please from Autograph. I owned Jafria's self-titled debut and the second one, the one with that came out like a year later with You Must Be Dreaming or whatever.
Right.
That song.
Well, see, here's the thing. You know, you know absolutely what was driving all that.
What the record companies?
No, MTV.
Oh, MTV, yeah.
Yeah, MTV was driving that. I mean, if you saw it on MTV and it was being played, and, you know, that was, and again, this is nothing new because we've talked about this a million times, is MTV was such a huge influence on every band, you know, whether it was pop or rock or metal or you know, new wave or whatever. If you saw it on MTV, that was the thing to get. So rather, you know, looking back 30, 35 years now, you know, you go, man, that was a tough listen. Boy, that was shit. But I owned it back then. It's just like, well, that's what people did. They go, oh my God, it's on MTV. That's cool. I got to get that.
Yeah, you really didn't have anything better to compare.
No, I mean, that was the thing. People follow trends. They go with what's popular.
Yeah. Yep. And I, you know, it's weird too, because I was at the age, maybe if I was a couple years older, I bet I would not have been into that kind of stuff.
Probably not, but that wasn't geared toward older audiences. That was for the teeny boppers.
Right. Because I remember when I did the few really heavy bands that I discovered in the early 80s, my dad was like, you're not playing that in my fucking house. You know, I can remember when I got Ride the Lightning, because Ride the Lightning was my first taste of Metallica.
Right, of course.
You know, and I got it, and I've told that story before, I got it at the C&J convention. And I brought it home, and I was listening to it, and I'm listening to Creeping Death or Call of Cthulhu or whatever. And I just remember my dad busted into my room. He's like, what in the fuck are you listening to? And I was like, Dad, it's this new record. It's, you know, I got it at the convention. Well, turn it off.
Yeah.
Don't ever let me hear that shit in my house again.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to hear it. He wanted me listening to fucking Slim Whitman and Roger Whittaker and, you know, Kenny Loggins.
Well, this is interesting because I heard Styx Hexenhammer the other day. He was mentioning this, and here we are 30 plus years removed from the 80s. And I can only relate to this because this was something that was very prevalent in my house was about the whole, this is the devil's music shit.
Oh yeah.
And these preachers and these evangelists, and it was such a big backlash that, oh, this is the devil's music, and it's going to drive these kids to do all kinds of Satan worshiping and all kinds of shit. And of course, Penelope Spears did the Decline movie, and talked about that in the movie about the heavy metal devil horns and how this was going to adversely affect society, and how we were going to fall into despair and all this. And my mother, who bought into that, it was all about that because, even as a kid, I was into the rock and roll, and, I like to wear the black jeans, and, that's that. And, of course, the long hair, and, long hair, that's disobedience, and that's rebelliousness, and that's this and that. And, wearing black, that's just sinister. And you've got, and the thing is I look back, and here we are, we can look back at that now and go, that was fucking ridiculous. Who would buy into that?
Yeah, people did.
But I'm not saying that some kids didn't fall into deviant lifestyles, but every generation falls into deviant lifestyles. Every kid, there are a few kids, whether it's within them or it's their home environment or whatever it is, fall into some kind of deviant behavior. And I've never, not even as a kid, I never believed that, well, this is going to make me want to go out and murder somebody.
No, of course not.
But that was the wisdom at the time. Oh, if you listen to Metallica, you're probably going to kill somebody.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It was, dude, I remember my mom's best friend was this lady named Terry, and her husband, Roland, were really hardcore Christians, like really hardcore.
It's interesting. His name was Roland. They were they were holy Rolands.
Yeah, exactly. They really were. Like to the point that Roland played keyboards in the church band.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, it was like, even when we would go over to their house, they used to get together on a Friday night, and we had to go because we were little kids, and we'd go over and they'd play Yahtzee or some shit. And then next thing you know, Roland's got the keyboard out and he's singing and playing keys. And we're just like, cool, whatever. But when I got to be a little bit older, about 15, I guess, they had one of those seminars at the church about the evil music.
Yeah, of course.
And so my mom, of course, went because Terry asked her and made me go because I was big into the music thing. And literally, and my dad goes to this thing, and they're popping up all these different albums, and I have all of them.
Yeah.
They're like, here's Judas Priest, and this caused a suicide.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like, oh, let me just duck my head down here.
What was that evangelist guy who was out there really beating the drum about how evil rock music? What was his name? Something Larson or something?
Oh, I don't even remember.
It was like Bruce Larson or something like that. He had a lot of evangelical tapes out there about, he would analyze rock music and tell you how evil it was and shit.
I don't remember. I just know that all the churches at the time were doing these seminars to try and teach parents how to raise their kids.
Right.
And my dad was all but convinced to like throw out all my music at this convention until they pulled out an album that both him and my mom enjoyed, which was the Eagles' Hotel California.
Oh yeah, that was, well, okay, go ahead.
They did the 15-point presentation of the album cover.
Right.
With the long hair coming down from the balcony. And
well, it was Anton Neve.
Yeah. I mean, the whole they did the whole thing. And it was funny because I just, you know how sometimes with your parents, they didn't have to say anything. You just felt something was coming. I'm in that pew in the church, and I'm just feeling my dad breathing fire on me, even though he's not saying anything. Because they're showing Metallica, and they're showing Judas Priest, and they're showing
Wasp.
all these bands that I was into at the time.
Right, of course.
And then they showed the Eagles, the Hotel California, and I just saw my dad. My dad was like leaning forward like this on the pew, like forward.
Yeah.
And then when they pulled up the Eagles and put it back, and he recognized the album, he did one of these. He sat all the way back, like, okay, this just turned to bullshit.
Yeah, because they mentioned something I like.
Exactly. And I was so happy because if they would have just stayed with that, my dad probably would have come home, had a huge fight with my mom, because my mom would have stood up for the music because she was like a rock chick.
Yeah, because she was the Belkin, banker. Yeah,
exactly.
So she was a little more open-minded, a little more liberal when it came to the music.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it would have been a big fight followed by him taking all my fucking music and leaving me with the Bay City Rollers and the best of Three Dog Night or something.
Right.
That's all he would have let me keep. But because they did something he listened to, then he just wrote it off as all bullshit.
Yeah, this is bullshit because they mentioned something I like.
Well, thank God they did, or I might have been, dude, you might not have a show today. Because I might have been gone.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is and again, I didn't buy into it at all, but it was the whole, the evils of rock. And in fact, I had a lot of aspirations as a young person to want to play a musical instrument.
Sure.
And because I was so zealous about doing it, they stifled that and wouldn't allow me to play musical instruments or take lessons because and this is a quote from my mom. She told me that the reason they wouldn't allow me to do that is because of this concern that I would end up in some kind of a bar band and some kind of drug and alcohol induced reckless lifestyle, and it's just like, for what? Because I wanted to play some kind of a musical instrument, that's what's going to drive me. Well, because you're so interested in that, you have this unusual fascination with that kind of music.
Oh, please. So you couldn't even be in the band or anything?
No, absolutely not. No.
Dude, did I ever tell you that I was in the high school or the junior high school band?
No.
You're going to love this. Okay, Photoshop people, get ready. So in 7th grade, they let you, if you wanted to. You remember when they would first start teaching about band?
Yeah.
6th or 7th grade, and you had to go in and you had to pick your instrument.
Yeah, of course. And the instrument dealers were there.
Yeah.
And you had to, buy your trumpet or your drum or whatever it is that you wanted to play. And then, of course, they had, finance programs that they could purchase your instrument for you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But then you also had the band instructor that was telling you that, there's too many of these, so you can't play that. So you got to play, this, because everybody wanted to play trumpet. In our band, everybody wanted to play trumpet or drums. That was it.
Well, that's what I wanted to play. I wanted to play trumpet.
Everybody wanted to. You either wanted to be a trumpet or a drummer.
And I actually bought one.
Oh, a trumpet?
Yes, I do. I have one.
Can you play it?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah, I can play a little, but so I go to this thing, and of course, my mom is not with me at this thing to fucking shut me down. I wish she would have been. Could have changed a lot of fucking abuse that I took. But there was this girl named Tina that went right in front of me, and she had boobs.
Was her last name Yothers?
No, because she was much prettier than Tina Yoth. But in 7th grade, she had like 10th grade tits. and I loved her. I'm sure
you did. Who doesn't like a built girl, even at that age?
Yeah. So as we sat in the room, like we sat and we had like a little presentation from the music teacher about, how it works and, how the band is laid out in practice and on the stage and on performances and, all this shit, right? So I'm sitting next to this girl, Tina, and I'm just kind of doing that side glance, looking at her boobs, and I'm just totally into this girl, Tina.
Right.
And so that's when the teacher starts going around saying, well, what do you want to play? So she said she wants to play the flute. So me sitting right next to her, I said, so do I.
Yeah, I want to play her flute.
Yeah, well,
I want to play a flute.
I wanted her to play my flute.
Right.
But, of course, I end up, because of that, being the only guy that will play a flute or a clarinet. So I am the flute guy in fucking junior high school band. And to make it worse, then for whatever reason, Tina didn't end up joining the fucking band.
Nice. So she ducked out and you were stuck.
Yeah, like I don't know if her parents just decided they didn't want to spend the $800 on a fucking flute or something, but she didn't even end up in the band, so I ended up sitting with a bunch of girls I didn't like playing the fucking flute. And I played the fucking flute for 2 years before my mom wouldn't let me quit. I did the first year and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, Mom. I tried to go with, I want to be in the choir instead. And, oh, fuck that. We spent $800 on this thing. You're playing that flute.
Right.
So for 2 years, I played the fucking flute.
Yeah. Isn't that funny at a younger age what we'll do for chicks?
Anything at all. I'll tell you what, though, being in the band was definitely good for meeting chicks because there was a lot of girls in that band.
Of course.
And a lot of the good-looking girls were in that band. So, a lot of the cheerleaders and stuff were also in the band, which was great because, during the breaks and whatever, you could just kind of hang out and hit on them and, hey, baby, how are you?
Right.
Yeah, but no, I was like you, dude. I wanted to play the trumpet. If I would have had a choice, I would have picked the trumpet like everybody else. But I guess I had a choice, but I just didn't. I was just too stupid.
Well, obviously, it's no secret that I've on this show that, I was heavily influenced by the band Chicago.
Sure.
And I wanted to play the trumpet like Chicago, And that was what I was really into, man. It's like, man, I want to play Beginnings and I want to play, 25 or 6 to 4 or whatever. And it's like, those long haired guys, drug addled rock star.
Right. Exactly.
And then of course, into the early 80s, by the time I was getting to the point to where I was graduating from college. And if you read my forward in the new Dockin book, I talk about working at the record store, right. And that all kind of shifted at that point, so it kind of went heavier, harder at that point.
Sure.
But I mentioned how heavy MTV played a role, and that's the thing between you and I know you're a few years younger than me, but MTV was so influential. That everybody, whatever your style of music was, whether it was pop, whether it was the new wave, whether it was hard rock, whether it was metal, MTV was playing it. It's like, oh man, that fucking rocks, man. I want to be like that. I want to buy that CD or that cassette or that album or whatever. And It was just like, oh, that's devil's music. Look at Twisted Sister. Look at those fucking guys. Look at those drug addicts.
Yep.
Those deviants, those dregs of society. You don't want to be like that.
Well, I hate to say it, but they were kind of right. They all were drug addicts.
Well, they were. But they were, and look at Blackie Lawless. Look at him, fuck like a beast. What kind of language is that anyway, son?
Right.
That's disgusting.
They always focused on the most outrageous ones. It was always Wasp, Twisted Sister, and Motley Crue were pretty much the bad
Yeah,
ones.
of course, but they were over the top outrageous. They had the makeup and the hair and the outfits, and they had the whole bondage gear going on and the leather and the studs, and it's just like, oh, this is intimidating. Oh my God, I don't want my kid ended up like that.
Yeah, you didn't hear much bullshit talked about, I don't know, Quiet Riot or Jafria or Autograph. Y&T was never part of that conversation of the bad music.
No.
They were always accepted.
Yeah. But anybody that we'll look at Motley Crue, they got that whole pentagram thing on fire going on, and it's crazy and scantily clad girls, and that's not proper how chicks could dress, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, yeah, who doesn't want a hot chick in a short skirt? Holy shit.
Yeah. That's bad. Yeah, treat them like your buddies.
Yeah. That just makes lust in your heart. Yeah, I want to fuck that chick. Yeah, that's wrong. Don't look at her like that.
Look, the bottom line is, no matter how much you try to hide it, if you put chicks in burqas, at some point you'll be fucking trying to read the curves on the burqa. If that's all you see, that just happens. Dude, think about it. You've worked office jobs before, obviously. Like,
absolutely, sure.
Have you worked office jobs where there was a lot of women that worked at them?
No, not really.
I've worked several of those jobs, and I'll use an exact example. The insurance company that I worked at. When you walk in day one, you don't see anything that's really that good. Maybe one or two chicks that you're like, she's kind of hot. Once you've been there a little while, though, these fucking fours end up being sevens and sevens.
Well, yeah, you have to make do with what's available.
Yeah. And you start rearranging them. You really start having those fucking weird. I can tell you straight up, I rubbed a couple out here at the house thinking about chicks that even now I look at them on Facebook. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? What was I doing back then? I was like, ugh. But back when I was working and seeing them every day, and little stupid things, them fucking putting a pencil in their mouth or something, just sent my mind into the weird fucking place.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I bet you she does that with a dick too. Like, I'd get into those fucking weird places.
Yeah.
And I think everybody does. I think if you were, everybody lusts women. Every heterosexual man lusts women. And a lot of women lust women, to be honest, because the female form is just gorgeous. But we lust it to the point that that even if it's not that great, it's good enough.
Yeah, you'll make do.
Yeah, it's good enough. I mean, you and I both know, we've known some guys that clearly dated 6 miles above where they should have. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And even those guys will look at girls that are a 4 at an office, and if they work around them long enough, they'll be like, man, I'd like to fuck her too. even though they're already fucking a regular 9.
Yeah.
It's, there's 2 parts to every guy's lust. 1, the hotness. 2, the strangeness.
Yeah.
And both things have equal weight, I think. Just one takes longer to figure out than the other. The hotness is immediate, but the strangeness, it's always there.
Yeah.
That's how so many people end up going home with chicks and then waking up wanting to chew their arm off to get away from them.
Yeah, the coyote ugly.
Yeah, because they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
What you were thinking was it strange pussy.
Yeah.
That's why you did it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can honestly say I've never ended up in that situation, only because, number one,
you don't drink.
I don't drink. And that's a big factor for a lot of guys. That obviously your common sense or good sense goes right out the window. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I'll just go with it. What the fuck, But yeah, I always heard that way back in the 80s about the whole coyote ugly thing.
Oh yeah.
And here's the here's the funny thing. And I talked to you about this about a week ago. My pseudo mom, my mom who passed away, she was on the show. I can't believe it was like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And she and her husband owned the club that I worked at out in California. Right. And she passed away back in August last year. And, I was listening, the CMS live stream was on, and there was a point where she came on the show with us, and you were kind of interrogating her and interviewing her about me.
Right, sure.
And, well, what was he like back then? You know, what was his deal, you know? And right. She was just getting kind of a big kick out of everything you were asking her and stuff and laughing about it and stuff. And we would be at the club and be sitting there and stuff. And, you know, these girls would come up and they would kind of, you know, talk to me and kind of, you know, flirt with me and stuff and whatever. And after I was done talking to them for whatever, a few minutes or whatever, I would turn around and look at her and she would look at me and then she would just do this. If you don't have the CMS TV, you have no idea what I just did, but Chris gets it.
That's funny.
That's exactly what she would do every time. She would just like
basically run.
Yeah. Don't fall asleep. Don't have her fall asleep on your arm or you'll be chewing your arm off to get away from her.
Exactly.
You know, but I was never the promiscuous type anyway. And it wasn't like I was going to just say, yeah, why don't you come home with me tonight? It's like that's not happening. It's like, no way.
I've definitely done that.
No.
I ain't gonna lie. I had no shame in it either. Even the next morning when you realize that it just wasn't good, you know, it's like I wrote in, I think it's in the newest book about this one chick that I ended up going home with, and then come to find out she was like the barracks bang, like everybody had fucked her.
She was the pass around girl.
She was. Her nickname was Four Fingers because her pussy was so big that fucking you could take 4 fingers and go up in her.
You could almost go fisting her.
You really could. You know, now I'm thinking about it. I don't know that I wrote this in the book. So at any event, I'm out partying with my buddies, and she comes up to me and she's like, we were in this little club called the Heavy Metal Club, and it had a dance floor that probably is not as big as my office here here at the house. So you can imagine how big this thing was, and it was always, you know, like 8 people would be up dancing on this little tiny dance floor.
Well, as my mom's husband would say, Nellie's husband would say, is they had a dance floor the size of a postage stamp.
Yeah, exactly. And that's about what this was. It was this little tiny dance floor.
Exactly.
But I was fucked up. And this girl had kind of like hit on me, like in the barracks and stuff. But it always seemed almost, you know how there's like legitimate hitting on somebody and then there's playing around or fake.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, and it would be, we'd be in the barracks and she'd like rub up on my arm and she'd be like, "Ooh, I'd like to feel that."
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
What, but it always was like fake. It never felt like it was a real thing. It just was like kind of phony. So I never really thought anything about this chick. I just thought she was just playing around or whatever. And I knew that she had been, you know, dating a couple different people in the barracks. So I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, I didn't think anything of it. So one night the parties always started in my room. And so we were having a party in my room and we're getting all fucked up and we're drinking soju. We're drinking, Southern Comfort was my drink at the time. I'm drinking bottles of soju. They sold, you could buy a case of soju for about $4.
Wow. That's cheap shit.
It was cheap shit. But the top of it had formaldehyde, so you had to kind of flick the bottle to get the formaldehyde off the top of the. So
you had to take the poison off.
You had to. It was really, it was an art. But we would flick this stuff off, and then we would drink the soju. Well, I never liked the taste of soju much, so a lot of times I would chug soju bottles because they were small. They were like a water bottle. Like
does raw alcohol of any kind really taste good?
Well, this stuff was bad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No matter what you're drinking, if you're drinking straight alcohol, whether it's whiskey or anything, does it really taste good?
No, not usually. No. I like Southern Comfort straight. I do like that straight.
Do you like the taste?
I do like the taste.
Really? So do you actually taste it, or do you just shoot it down your throat?
No, I taste it. I'll drink Southern Comfort slow sometimes.
Okay.
Sipping, like I'd rather sip that than like Jack Daniels.
All right. Do you drink it straight, or do you put it on ice, or how do you drink it?
Ice it.
Okay.
It's like sugary. I don't know if you've ever had Southern
Comfort.
I have.
I've had Southern Comfort. I've drank Jack Daniels. I've drank Jim Beam. Yeah.
Southern Comfort is it's kind of like Pussy Man's whiskey because it's got sweetener in it so that it's not that it's not
it's not a harsh burn your throat shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's got that sweetness to it. But so I'm shooting bottles of soju and I'm chasing with a fifth of Southern Comfort.
Wow.
And that was just what we did back then.
I hope my stomach can handle this, but okay, here we go.
Dude, I was iron stomach. And honestly, I never cared if I puked anyway. If I puked, it was all the better because I could just drink more.
That's the whole thing with you that I have to laugh about. It's just like, I'll stick my dick in anything. I'll drink anything. I'm an Iron Man. Yeah! Fuck yeah!
I don't care. It's fun. The party is fun. No matter, to me, the party is the fun.
Yeah.
It's not about the drinking. It's not even about the fucking. It's about the party. It's about getting there. It's about the fun of it. So in any event, we're having this party in my room, and everybody's drinking the soju, and we're all passing Southern Comfort around and getting fucked up. And this girl shows up in my room, and she's more enamored with me than normal. We're in the room, and next thing I know, we're making out or something, and and it was just music's playing, shit's going on, and she like grabbed me and started kissing me, so I fucking pushed her up against a wall locker and started kissing her back.
Some love potion number 9.
But even then, I didn't, and again, this was how it was there. I didn't think anything of it. It was like, okay, that was cool. We're all going downtown. Do you want to go with us? She was like, yeah, cool. So we all go. We get a big table at the Heavy Metal Club. And we're all there, and we're pounding beers, drinking OB beers. And the reason we're drinking OB, because it was cheap as shit, but it came in big bottles. So you could get a lot of beer with the OBs. But it was awful, but who cared? So we're drinking OBs at the table, and they're playing, all kinds of metal and stuff, the 80s metal at the time. And at one point they played, I don't know. I wish my mind could still remember this, but they played something that was a ballad at the time, whatever the ballads were.
Like White Snake, This Is Love or something?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know what it'd be. Ballad of Jane. I don't know. Whatever it was. And she's like, do you want to dance? And I was like, yeah, let's go. So I get up and I'm like slow dancing with her, and me and her just start making out. Next thing I know, she's like pawing at my ass and at my balls. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
This is fucking rocking. So I just kind of was, I looked at her, and it was like that look, like, hey, let's go fuck look. And I was like, you want to leave? And she's like, yeah, let's go. I was like, okay, cool. So we get a cab and we go back to my room in the barracks, and we get to the barracks, and I don't know what I'm thinking, but it was so fucking stupid. It was, we get there, and instead of just going for it like I should have, I'm like, so do you want to watch a movie or something? It's like, what are you, in today's world, I'm like, what are you doing? I should have just been like, ripped the shirt open and fucking got to those tits. But instead, I'm like, oh, you want to watch a movie?
Yeah, you're trying to be gentlemanly.
Yeah. And she's like, okay. So we put on some movie, and then we get on the bed, and like the bed, it was like bunk beds because I had a roommate, and the beds were kind of catty corner of the TV. So we were kind of like sitting on the bed, like in the middle, but not long ways like the bed is, like the short way, so that we were facing the TV. That makes sense.
Okay.
And so legs are hanging off the bed. And we start, we kind of lean back against the wall and start making out. And she starts like rubbing my dick. And I was like, all right, now I'm like fucking rock fucking hard.
Right.
And she just she like goes down on me and starts giving the worst blowjob, even to this day, I've ever had.
Yeah. Did she rake your dick?
No, she didn't do that. It was the other way that it could be horrible. It was the kind of blowjob that fucking they just suck on just the top of your dick.
Yeah, she wasn't fully committed. She just was like she was just like lipping the tip.
Yeah, that 1/4-inch movement on the head of your cock.
Yeah, she wasn't fully in.
No, and no addressing the balls at all.
No, of course not. Well, that's an inexperienced girl right there.
Yeah, it just was awful. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this and I'm like enjoying watching it, but it's awful. It's terrible. So at one point I just get up and I'm like, all right, whatever. And I just start pulling her pants off her and getting her clothes off. And I put my dick in her, and I kid you not, and maybe I got a tiny dick, I don't know, but I'm not getting anything.
No friction at all.
Nothing.
It was like throwing a hot dog down a hallway, as the old saying goes.
It wasn't quite that bad, but I mean, it was like, when you first when you very first put your dick in a chick, and like you just feel the pussy kind of open up a little bit.
Yeah. You're spreading it out a little bit.
Yeah, you feel it taking it a little bit. I felt that little tiny bit, and then nothing.
Yeah, it was like Black Sabbath, Into the Void.
Oh, I was like, and I literally at one point pulled back to make sure I didn't just flat out miss.
Right.
I thought I missed. And then at some point I was like, oh my God, I'm in this fucking big, deep pussy. And I'm like trying to, I put her legs on my shoulders and I was trying to wrap my arms around her legs to squeeze her legs together.
Right. To get some friction.
It's something. And there just was nothing happening there.
It was like, screw in the air.
Ugh. So after like a couple of minutes, I literally said, I'm done. And I just got off her. I just got off of her and put my clothes back on, and we ended up watching the rest of the movie till we fell asleep. It was the worst. It was the single worst episode in my entire life.
Yeah, there's just nothing there, honey.
Yeah. And I was like, good Lord. And believe me, it makes you question yourself. It's like, all right, I thought I had a decent sized dick.
She goes, well, thanks for the thrill ride there, thumb dick.
Yeah, no shit. I was like, what the hell? I was like, it's never felt that fucking tiny to everybody else. What the hell happened here?
Yeah, she was just wallowed out.
Well, and it was funny because the next day I'm at breakfast, in the mess hall. I'm sitting with my buddies and they're like, hey, I saw that you went home with blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say her name.
Yeah.
But, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. We kind of hung out for a while, and they were like, and that's when I heard the fucking four fingers for the first time.
Ah, nice.
And a couple of the guys were like talking about how she had such a big fucking pussy. And I was like, yeah, I can attest to that.
Wow.
But yeah, that's I don't know how we got to this story, but
we were talking about the evils of heavy metal.
Yeah, well, that was one of those evils. All
right. Turned you into a deviant.
Yes, it did.
Go out there banging chicks that were all wallowed out.
Yeah, she definitely was. Nice girl. I mean, she was nice, but oof, I think I needed a 2x4 strapped to my ass to get in there. Jesus.
Nice. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I when, working at the club in California, I made acquaintances with a lot of chicks, but man, just the thought of dragging them home or something was just like, I don't want this girl in my apartment. Yeah.
Well, it was just different in the military because everybody was in the barracks anyway.
Yeah, I get you.
So it really wasn't, y'all were going to the same place anyhow. It was just a different room within the same house. The worst part when you messed around with the chicks in the barracks was not the banging, at the time. It was there's two worst parts. One was inevitably you ended up either fucking in front of somebody or around somebody, because there was all the barracks rooms had 3 people in it.
Yeah.
So, and we were all 20-year-olds, whatever. So it wasn't like we were going to go get a hotel. None of us had any fucking money.
Yeah, of course. It was the community fuck room.
Yeah, and that's what we all did was, I can remember putting a girl in the wall locker just so that her roommate wouldn't be watching us fuck on the bed. So I put her in a wall locker and banged her in a wall locker.
Oh, nice.
Dude, I mean, that was just how it was. That was one of the things that was bad in the barracks. And then the other thing that was bad was when you really just didn't give a shit, when it was just kind of, was Saturday night and you offered, so I fucked you. When it was that kind of a scenario, the week after that on your barracks door, just trying to, because they all wanted you to be, in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because they gave you that golden flower.
Yeah, I guess.
It was like, it was constantly, are you in there?
No, I'm not.
Are you in there, Aiken? Nope.
Nope. Man.
Good times, man.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that that was 30 plus years ago.
Dude, that was so long ago, man. 80, 87, 88.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long time ago.
It is.
I got to think that anybody that was in the service at the same time, at least that was overseas, did the same shit. Because part of being overseas was that whole, you were out in the wild, wild west. There were no rules. Even the guys and chicks that were all married, they all were fucking everybody. There was no rules. There were so many guys that I knew that were married that had 2 or 3 different girlfriends, 2 girlfriends downtown, and then another one in the barracks, and no one cared. Nobody cared, man. It was all just a fuck fest for 2.5 years. It's insane.
Well, I got to, I don't know if I told this story on the show before, but at the club, we used to have exotic dance night.
Okay.
And the girls from the Hollywood Tropicana would come up and do their show at the club, right?
Right.
So it was typically like 6 of these girls would show up, and they all had their own shtick. They all had their own little act that they put on and so on and so forth. And I got to know this one girl. Her name was Debbie Costello.
Okay.
And she was a, what was her claim to fame? She was a Hawaiian tropic girl.
Okay.
And beautiful little brunette.
Well, I'll bet. Probably a little stout body, right?
Yeah. And, I got to know her a little bit, and she, she was always friendly toward me and stuff. And, even though these girls made bank on a lot of times, for some reason, they never had money.
Right.
And I think a lot of it had to do with probably a majority of them was they were like doing blow and, they whatever. So I got to know this girl, and she didn't have a car, and she would have to go to these different clubs and do these shows. And she was just like, I was just wondering, could you give me a ride?
Okay.
And she lived in Fontana, California, which was, it was like, I don't know, 40 miles from me. So I would go, so I would go pick her up and take her, bring her to the club or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And, I liked her as a person, but, because of the lifestyle that she led, it was just like, yeah, she's pretty hot and she's friendly and she's a good looking girl and stuff. But boy, there's just no way that ever would develop into anything.
You're that guy that wouldn't date the stripper.
No, I liked her, but she was just too aloof.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because every guy liked her, you know what I mean?
Right.
But she did like me on a personal level, and of course she used me for rides and things, and I got that. I wasn't naive. And I liked her as a person and stuff. So anyway, I was dating this other girl at the time.
Okay.
And her sister wanted to go to this club down in Rancho Cucamonga.
Okay.
Which is down along Interstate 10 in Southern California. People who listen to the show may know where I'm talking about. And there was this new club down there. It was called Charlie's. And so I went with this girl and her sister, and I was down at this club, and I was with them, and who should be there? This Debbie Cristello, right?
Oh,
so I'm out on the dance floor with the girl that I came with, right? And this Debbie sees me, right? Yeah. She walks right out onto the dance floor, grabs my arm, and literally dragged me away from my date.
What?
Seriously.
Oh, I'd have been pissed.
And she was just like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm out with this girl and her sister, and we're down here." And so she's just like, "I didn't know you came to places like this." And I go, "Places like what?" And she goes, "Well, I know you from this other club." And blah, blah. She was giving me this whole thing. And I said, "So what's the deal?" And she goes, "Well, who's that girl?" And
what do you care?
Well, that was the whole thing. It's just like, why do you care?
Right.
And it was almost like she was jealous or something.
Could have been.
It was bizarre. It was just like, and so of course now I have to explain to my date who this other girl is. And she goes, "Well, who's that?" Yeah. "Oh, just some stripper I know."
Yeah, just some whore I know.
Exactly.
Just this chick that does blow that I give rides to.
Right, of course. So talk about an awkward moment, man.
Yeah. Isn't that weird how and guys do this too. I don't want to just throw this only on chicks, but isn't that weird how people in general create more of a relationship than they generally have?
True.
With people. They do it all the time. It's always weird to me. Like if I'm hanging out with somebody, with anybody, and they're like, "Oh, well, you got to go because I have a friend coming over." I have a friend coming. "Oh yeah, who's your friend?" And I would never ask that because it's like, I get it. You're dating somebody else. So what? I'm not trying to date you. What's the problem?
Yeah.
But it's always, people seem to get really weird about that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like they've invented more than there is. It's such a goofy. People are goofy.
Don't I know it?
I just never understand when you say you're not dating, and both sides say it, and then one of them gets jealous if you're spending time with someone else.
Yeah.
What does that? How does that make any sense? And I almost think it's kind of human nature-ish.
Yeah, well, it is, of course. There's a little bit of territorialism in anything like that.
Yeah, you're enough mine that you can't be anybody else's.
Right.
Even if you're not even connected at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I think about that incident, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like, because I never dated that girl. We never went out. We never even kissed or nothing, nothing.
Just give her a ride.
Yeah. It's like, well, you're mine. It's like, who's that girl? Who are you with? What are you doing here?
That's insanity.
It's like, why do you care?
Yeah. But she obviously did. And then after that, was it weird back at the club after that?
I don't think that I saw her after that, to be honest with you.
Like she stopped working there because of that?
Well, she was on a circuit, she didn't come every week, it was just,
okay.
see, the different girls came every week, and so she maybe came up like once a month.
Right.
But
okay.
I don't recall that I even saw her after that.
She got off that circuit.
Perhaps.
She didn't want to see you cheating with other with other people you weren't dating.
Exactly. But talk about having to explain that.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Yeah, who's that girl? What's her story? And she just dragged me away from her.
Crazy.
Yeah, weird. People are weird. All right, I say we take a break.
Okay.
I think this is something we can all relate to.
All right.
This goes back to the 80s, which we were so familiar with.
Okay.
It's a classic. It's some Dokken.
All right.
It's the Kiss of Death. Exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.
Hi, this is Don Dokken. You're tuned into the Classic Metal Show, the hardest rockin' show on the dial. Keep rockin' with Dokken.